Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus. I am the founder and CEO of True You Teams. And here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus Kraus, and I literally almost could not sleep last night because of the guest that we have on today, Amber Swenor. We have Amber on today. Hi, Amber.
Hello.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited to be here.
I know. We have not really had like a jam session about transformation, so I'm excited about where we're going to go with this conversation. But first of all, could you give everyone just a little bit of a background on like, who is Amber? The big question.
Thank you. Okay, who's Amber? Well,
Yeah.
As a child, I was empathic, also very outgoing, sensitive, but also a bit of the rebel. And that was that duality that it took me many years of my lifetime to understand. I overcame some hardships, like I think many of us do in our journey. But of course, it wasn't until years later in the experience of being a business owner that I really was able to, I guess you would say, confront and look at and start unpacking those things. So my background had been in sales, marketing, brand strategy. And I started my first official business in 2015, grew that pretty successfully as a brand strategy marketing firm. But early on in that, I really knew that I was meant to work with people in their journey to really following their authentic path, being more of their full authentic expression. But when I started my first business, I didn't know what in the heck that was, that like
Right.
how this working with people and getting paid for it. So through the journey of building the business that I did know people needed, which was marketing and brand strategy, I started deepening my skills, my training, and started offering transformational coaching, retreats, speaking. And then there had been an evolution where to the point in 2020 to 2021, I rebranded to Soul Seed and effectively phased out much of the marketing, where now I really focus on really helping people come home to their authenticity for a path as the path to greater personal freedom for them. But then also within business and corporate contexts, that's such a key to transformational leadership and the kind of leadership that we need in the workplace. And then within this, I'm also the front person of my hard rock metal band. And it's interesting how kind of side by side that journey of being a musician, but then also being a business owner and coming into my own confidence. It's like they both fed each other so that I could finally come to this place. And what I talk about in Unleashed is where you can be whole as your authentic self. And that was a huge part of my journey, which was embodying who I am, and that I don't need to be a musician Amber over here and professional Amber over here.
Right.
That was important for me to not have to be like a split identity.
Yeah, it's beautiful because I've watched your journey. Like one of my things that I love doing is watching women on the rise and just watching kind of what they're up to and what they're doing. And so I've watched you on social media and watched you as you've grown into who you are today. And authenticity is really what you focus on a lot. And I love that because in corporate, like my 22-year career in corporate, right? I didn't really know it during the time I was going through it, but looking back on it now, it really was exactly what you said. It was that idea of I have to be somebody else. I have to be what they think I should be versus really understanding who I am. So I love that you talk about authenticity. Can you just go a little bit deeper in like, why is authenticity so important? And why is it the big thing that a lot of women like really, really struggle with?
When we're trying to fit the roles and be who we think we're supposed to be, and the evidence and data is there about how that can lead to burnout, how actually it stifles innovation. It really holds us back from flowing in our zone of genius, and that help, we can do better for our teams and our businesses. But really at a human level, I believe that this work starts at the inner world and at the human level. And I just personally believe that we each deserve that as humans to
Yeah.
feel at home in our own selves.
Mhm.
And so through this, and I love that you bring that up around your, you know, your extensive experience in corporate, and maybe not always seeing the connecting of the dots with that. That's something that I'm really aiming to overcome, is really show the evidence and data. And I'm so glad that there are studies coming out.
Finally.
So it's important at a human level, but then also we can start to see that in order for there to be change and workplaces that are more equitable for women in leadership, it
Mhm.
needs to be more than just flexible work environment. When I think of flexible, I think of flexibility for creating the space to be who you are,
Yeah.
and to bring fresh ideas, to bring the energy of your self-expression. So in my
Mhm.
journey, when I went into I guess you could call it corporate, it was, even though it wasn't a huge organization,
Sure.
but in a professional work environment, I felt that I had to tone down my vibrancy, even my volume, even my ideas, where that directly impacted and held back the success of the team and the clients I was working with. And it wasn't until I allowed more and more of that to show. This is why authenticity is critical.
Yeah.
It's
What do
one of
you
the
think holds?
bedrocks for leadership.
Yeah. So what holds people back, women? I'm gonna go with women, all right? What holds women back from being
Yeah.
authentic at work?
I think there's some key things, and then it can be real on a personal case by case.
Yeah.
I think on the whole, many of us grew up with messages. Thankfully, I think this is starting to change in the world, but a
Yeah.
lot of us grew up with that we were meant to don't take up too much space. If we're shining brightly, somehow that's taking away opportunity from someone else. It could be
You're too
based on the
sensitive.
dynamics of what, yes, you're too sensitive, emotions are weakness.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's
It's
those,
real.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's those
It's
things.
real.
It's that if you're perceived to have confidence and speak your ideas without asking for permission or having to be validated, that somehow that makes you a
Yeah.
bitch, right?
Right,
uh
right, exactly. When it's our programming that I mean, for me, it was my programming, right? I had several people in my life. You're too emotional, you're too much, you're too sensitive, you know? And today I'm like, thank you, it's my superpower. But in the moment, as I was growing up in my programming, it like shut me down. And so now what I find with some of the women that I coach is now I'm in corporate and I'm on these teams and I'm in these groups, and those triggers still happen. And so
yes.
I would love for you to talk about when you're coaching women that this is an issue for, like, how do you really coach them into standing in their leadership so that they can overcome that?
Ooh, so how I coach them in it, there's multiple tools, but really where we start is the basis of creating the space for them to recognize where they most come alive, where they feel the feeling of freedom, expression, creation, really helping them come home to what are times when you have felt that you could be your most authentic self, that you could bring forth a creative idea or a vision. Because when we can anchor what that feels like for them in their body, when we can look at, well, what were the conditions around that? What were you telling yourself around that? To give ourselves that basis of a place that has where they have experienced that freedom before.
Yeah.
And it's a, you know, it's a process that we keep stepping into, but
Hmm.
it's really when we open up what I call the default, and default patterns, they can exist for all of us. And I've had several notable ones in my journey when once I became aware of it, I was able to shift. And I'd love to get into one of those.
Yeah.
But so it's first creating that safety of, like, we're not looking at this through the lens of anything's broken, but let's first start
Yeah.
with, what does this feel? And for some of them, they actually don't know. So then I give them assignments to go out into the
Yeah,
world and to
exactly.
test different things that help them recognize coming home to what feels good for you. And then it's the, as you said, the programming and deconstructing and giving ourselves a new perspective and a way from which to see ourselves.
Right. I love that. Yes, I would love for you to give an example of that. Like, what does that look like in action?
Okay. So one of my big ones early in my journey with my business, was the hard work default, where I was working harder and harder. And it was also the nice girl and money blocks. There was, and this is the thing, most people show up with multiple things kind of entangled. So okay. So I was way over delivering services. I was super frustrated that I wasn't going to be able to hit the revenue goals and build my team with the way where I was stuck with not charging more. And my first coach mentor at the time, I told him about this problem, and he said, "Oh, it's easy, just double your rates." The thing was, it
And
wasn't
you're like,
just
what?
easy. It wasn't, no, right? It wasn't just easy. And I needed to start to deprogram that. With my growing up, where my parents were extremely hardworking, I was the first in my family to graduate high school. My parents were very much, we give the shirt off our back. I kind of like everyone struggles together. So with that energy and mindset that I need to be here to help everyone because we all struggle together, that was preventing me from confidently offering the services for what it needed, what it was worth, but what it needed to be charged for my company to become sustainable. It's something that I also call toxic generosity, which is when you're generous, but when you start becoming generous to where you start getting resentful and it's toxic. Right. And that experience helped me look at patterns in my family, how we had been taught to be proud of hard work, that you bust your butt all week long to get by, that we struggle together because, and then it went deeper with identity. Like, if I'm no longer struggling, what does that mean for my place in the family and the community in which I came from?
Right. And then all the guilt and the shame and the other stuff, right?
Yes. So so that hard work is a big default, that we think we have to work 50, 60 hours a week, or it has to feel painful, exhausting, hard in order for us to have been worthy of it or to be a success. And that's a huge part of the work I think we both do, which is helping people actually recognize that when we can work from flow. I kind of love to embrace being lazy because I do my best work there. And
that's why it's 8:21 right now. Recording this, and we both show up and like, oh my God, it's 8 a.m. and we've showered and we're here. We're like, ready.
Why did we decide to meet at 8:00? But but it's great.
yeah, absolutely. I love it. I mean, it's so like what I want to do. I think
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
We must have a little bit of a delay or something. What I love where you're going with it, because there's this part when I was going through my journey where I didn't even know anything was wrong, right? I was just on the rat race. I was going. I was in hustle culture, just, every single day you just go until you don't. And I think there's so many people out there that are living this life that don't see the freedom on the other side of it, which is, I know for me, why I hold the spaces for retreats and for coaching and all that kind of stuff, because we know that when somebody gives themselves a gift of time to just stop the rest of the world and go in and take yourself on, right? Find a coach, find a retreat, whatever that looks like. We know the transformation that's on the other end of it. So how do you talk to people that are like still in that mode of like, I have all these issues in my life, but I'm pretending not to know that they're there? How do you get them into like that mindset of like the self-development stuff, and you get to show up to go to these things so that you can turn that stuff around? Like, what does that look like for you? Because I mean, it's that I find that a lot. I feel like when I'm talking to people, they're like, it's almost like you just trust and try it. Just come to one and see what happens. And then they come to them like, oh my God, this is a whole world that I didn't even know about.
Oh, and then it's always life-changing, right?
Always. Yeah, always.
Yes. Well, I'd be curious how you approach it. And for me, what I do is I really looked at it as invitations, and that I'm here to shine my light the way that you're shining, to attract those who are there. It doesn't mean that they fully understand it, or they might not. Most people still feel fear when they start exploring this work, but all we can do is be a light and invite people and show them some steps. But I mean, it has to be people, their own self choosing to make one of those first steps. But what I say to people is whenever we come across something in life, there's a difference between it not feeling right in your body or icky because it's like just totally not values alignment versus, ooh, that gives me a flutter. I'm a little nervous. There's a little bit of imposter syndrome flaring up, but actually there's something about that I want for myself. There's something about how maybe that woman's leading that actually I desire for me. And it's not about wanting to copy you or me, but
Right.
if someone sees you and says, well, wouldn't that be nice to just up and go on retreat for a week? Did they see for themselves for a moment? No, wouldn't it be nice? Is there a part of them that would like that? Because if they're noticing that, you first have to be able to let yourself actually acknowledge the truth of it. And so sometimes it shows up, at least when I make the invitation, sometimes people might show up for them as they might be judging it or feeling resentment or irritation that they feel that their life doesn't allow them to do it. And that's how I help them see the work, is just invite them to look at that and reflect on that and say, well, do you want to give yourself the possibility that actually when you're presented with opportunities, you don't show up with excuses or resentment or fear, but you can actually be empowered to fully decide, yes, I want to do this. Yes, this is for me.
Yep, exactly. It's a process, right? I mean, it's a process. Even if I think back to my own journey, I would dip my toe in it and go to something and it'd be like, oh, that's interesting, but I wasn't quite ready. So I think one of the biggest things I've learned on this journey as a coach is that like you and I can be the best coach in the world, but if somebody's not ready, they're not going to do the work. And it's the hard work that gets us to the other side. It gets us through it. So that's kind of why I asked that question. I wanted to presence that, is because sometimes people just aren't ready, and it's okay. As it's okay from our perspective. It's okay. When you're ready, you will start feeling it inside.
Yes. And then our only job is to take a step on that, toward that. I think right here is critical. Another one of the big defaults that shows up that I witness is then people say, but then what happens steps 5 through 12? Or, well, I only need to get this perfect and this in order before I'm ready. So I agree with you on readiness, and for people to recognize that ready doesn't mean that you can already foresee the next 10 years of your future, that everything needs to be perfect. I'm sure we both have, I have so many stories of clients that, they agree to step into a thing, and then life shows them a whole bunch of reasons where they could choose to not be ready. But actually it's that making that choice for them to choose in themselves is the huge part of that, what starts the process unfolding, because they're making the conscious choice to say, no, like I'm no longer available for that. So I think that's one of the indicators of getting ready, is when it can be a positive and you're flowing to the future, but it can also be like, I'm so sick and tired of my own BS, or like, I'm just tired of whatever. Whenever you're tired enough and no longer available for, is a great way to recognize if you're ready.
When the pain gets greater, right? When the pain is greater than the work that it's going to take to get there. I wanted us to talk about that because I know that there's people listening that have seen either you or I out there. And I know that people watch, and like, my wish in the world is that everybody would go through this work, because I think that we would have a much different world if everyone had some of these principles in there. I want to read something from the book that I bookmarked from you.
Ooh,
and I want you to talk.
Okay.
I know. And I want you to talk about it, because I thought that it was pretty cool, because you mentioned freedom in it too, because authenticity, which is what you talk a lot about, is freedom. And there's a lot of things that hold us back from that. So you say in your book, the word authenticity may be overused lately, but that doesn't mean it's a hollow concept. To live authentically is one of the bravest, most rebellious, you said issues, things that you can do. I had to read that a couple times, like, what's that word? Things that you can do. It's the opposite of self-serving. And so I want you to talk about that a little bit, because I know when I started my journey, like, I was selfish. I'm doing all this stuff for myself, and like people are getting rubbed up against it. And so I love that you mentioned that it's freedom serving, not self-serving, for you and everyone around you. So could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that was genius.
Thank you. In order for us to experience joy, our most aligned expression, whatever it is that we want to do, be, or create in the world, for that to come from the truest state, you have to trust and love and know and embody who you are and what it is that you want to do, be, and create. So this book is a journey around what are you doing for you? But it's also really geared for people in leadership who do feel the drive to do for the world, for their teams, for their companies. However, if we're always showing up based on what we think everybody else needs, you're always still living that life from the outside in. And so when I say that it's not self-serving, it's freedom serving to yourself and those around you. It's like when I look at my journey, if I only would have kept doing my business based on what all the clients said they needed and what all the teams said they needed, and I was running myself ragged, trying to be all the things to all the people, versus leadership is when you shift into saying, no, this is my vision. This is how this company operates best for me. Now you shift into the driver's seat. Now it's really taking leadership. And then so for in my case, that's really when the pivot point happened, when we started having much greater impact with women. When I said, no, I really want to take a stand for women. Yes, there's maybe so many more male business owners out there right now, but I want to take a stand for women. And when I started doing that and putting myself in the driver's seat and being authentic, we started attracting more and helping more. And we help women reach the 6 and 7 figure mark and help the women save and sell her business. And a lot of these are what I describe as heart-centered visionaries. I believe heart-centered is a strength, not a weakness. So in order for me to even have any of this impact, and some people may not care about helping other people change their lives, but for me, this has been fulfilling, getting letters from people about how this changed their life, or they went on to be able to love themselves, believe in themselves, fulfill some personal dreams, right? Buy a home or take a dream vacation. That is so fulfilling, but that only happened because I decided to get in the driver's seat and star in the leading role that was my own authenticity.
Right. And my guess is you went through your whole journey in of yourself to do that.
Yes. Yeah. So if there's someone watching or listening that feels like, well, that they really care about helping address things for the community or for other people, the only way you can do that sustainably, where you're not constantly asking, what does everybody need, is you have to start with your own authenticity and what do you need and what do you desire first. There's a million ways to build a business, a million ways to use your strengths and talents. Why not do it in the way that's most aligned for you? Because when you're in your freedom of authenticity, you get so much energy back.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. There's a saying out there. So here's what came up while you were saying that. There's a saying out there: hurt people, transform people, transform people. And I know for me, that's totally true. And I think it is for you as well, that like when we're hurt and we just make that decision, like I'm sick of it. I'm sick of myself. I'm done with my own BS. And we get on this path to do this work and we heal our own hurt. Like automatically, almost every single person I've ever talked to about this, there's this moment that says, oh, I get to leave whatever I'm doing right now and go do this and transform other people now for the rest of my life, because this work matters. This work matters so much. Yes. So like, do you see that as well? Like once you heal your own hurt, it's like, oh my God, like.
Yes. So one of my big world changing visions that I'm striving toward is to help impact global healing through the rise of conscious leadership. I know that might sound this big thing, right? But it is exactly what we're doing. We are, and this is why, right? The work we're doing, when we impact one person, then they trickle and they impact 1, 5, 10 in their world. This is us contributing to global healing and transforming workplaces so that they are more inclusive, more sustainable, that they work for women. It's not just about, oh, what's our maternity leave policy? No, I'm talking about transforming the way in which we embrace how we're being within the dynamics of workplace conversations.
Right.
Yes.
It's super exciting. Like I get so excited when we start talking about this, because again, that programming that goes in there, when I see women get that piece of it, like I have control over that. Like I can take my own power back. It is absolutely amazing. And I live for that moment. I absolutely live for that moment, because I agree with you. This is about healing the world, and it starts with healing ourselves individually.
Yes. And just really looking at what are the limiting beliefs or ideas that have been taught to us that aren't really our own. I think there's an amazing example right now in pop culture with Britney Spears' book and audiobook. It just as an example, right? It whether people follow it or not, just looking at the example of her being put under the oh gosh, it's not conservancy. I just read the whole book and I'm messing up the conservatorship, and looking at what is an example of it talks a little bit in the book about where would you see that with a male pop star who could be out doing whatever he wants with his money, but some of her choices were no different than a man. And then how did she end up in this conservatorship? It may be an extreme example, but it's so similar when we start to look at, as women, where we maybe not allowing ourselves to take our own control for our own lives or our finances. But in the workplace, we need men and women, everyone, to do this work, any identity. But it's these little micro ways that it can show up within the workplace, even microaggressions, because of sometimes deeply ingrained gender roles, deeply ingrained ideas about what it means to be at a workplace. And that's what this work in transformational leadership helps to start dissecting. The change starts within us. So if we can start shifting how we operate and then create teams and workplaces that show, okay, wait, this idea over here, we've always been doing it this way, or everyone's been told they have to do XYZ, but let's really take a look at why are we doing it that way? Does that really feel good?
Right. It's really transforming the ways of being. We're so in corporate, we're so locked into the doing and the results and go and hustle culture that we never ever stop to go, okay, how am I showing up? Like, how am I being when I do show up? And there's this thing that says, if I don't have a title, then I'm not a leader. And it makes me crazy, because when we talk about leadership, we all are leaders. I don't care if you have a title or not, we're all leaders and we all lead from within. And so I think that's like, if there was one thing, I'm going to ask you the same question, but like, if there was one thing that somebody said, if somebody's watching this and they're in corporate and they're feeling burnt out and low and don't know where to start, I would say, start telling yourself that you're a leader. Like, start telling yourself that you're a leader, and then start being that leader. So what would you say to that? What would be your advice?
I echo what you said, that as cliche as it is, be the change you want to see in the world. When you start embodying it and being it, that's it gives you the proof. It's the learn by doing, the progress over perfection, like I talk about in the book. That's how change happens. Sometimes we're waiting and we're looking around for someone else to lead or show the way, but that's not really how the world works. We can be inspired by and find mentors, people like you and I, and be a part of communities. And also, people are there to help support in your journey, but your journey for each person is going to require you to take that step to say, okay, I guess it's me.
Right.
I'm going to be the change I want to see, even if it's just for yourself. Even if you're like, I don't want to lead anyone. That's great. Lead yourself first.
Lead yourself. Yeah. And even like, I talk about this a little bit. If you're in a team meeting, and be what's missing. Like, if fun is missing, be the fun. If seriousness is missing, if decision making is missing, like, be what's missing, regardless if you have the title or not. So
I love that.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you are who you are. I think you're freaking amazing. And I feel like this is kind of a weird question to ask you based on everything that we've already talked about, but the podcast is
I like weird.
I know, right? Your weird is the new normal. The podcast is your leadership legacy. And so when you think about legacy, Amber, what legacy are you intentionally, because you're very intentional about it, and I love that, what are you intentionally leaving as a legacy?
Really, that your own authenticity. It's something deeply held. I truly feel that is our individual path to self-liberation, to self-love. The authenticity is the path to freedom. And I'm aiming to help inspire people in whatever way that is for them to recognize that they're worth living, that they are worthy and that they're capable, no matter where they come from, what path they walk in life. And in a lot of ways, when I get really down to the root of it, a lot of my work here is to help people like my women, or like my mother, women like my mother, who had, came up through so much hardship and did not have right? And it was the generations before where my grandma, what they struggled through. And so my mom told me when she read my book and she was crying and said, this was the book that my generation needed 30, 40 years ago, or where were you for me 30 or 40 years ago? And so I want people to do this for them. But if they feel a calling to leadership, be the person that someone 30 years from now is going to say, where were they? Give the speech, write the book, speak up in the meeting, because you never know who you're inspiring. So that's my legacy, is to help those heart-centered women like my mom to know that they're worthy and to take a step forward on what they want to do and create for their lives.
Yeah. Woo, I got goosebumps over that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's so amazing. I heard a saying that when you heal yourself, you heal the 7 generations before you, and you heal the 7 generations ahead of you. And so that's what I hear you saying with your legacy. So I want to honor you, Amber. I want to honor you because I think you're an amazing human, an amazing individual. I love that you have such a huge stand for women, because it matters. It really, really matters. So I honor you for that. Thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Soul-seed.com.
Where can they buy that book?
Yeah, the best place is soul-seed.com. From there, you can choose which site you go to. And my book is online everywhere. You can get it at your local bookstore too. You can order it in at any local bookstore. And audiobook is coming soon. There's print.
Yep. You're all over social media.
Yes.
All
Amber
over
Swenor.
social media.
Find me anywhere. I love connecting on LinkedIn.
Yeah, amazing. So if you're listening to this, and I'm sure that you at this point know how amazing Amber is. So reach out to her individually for teamwork, for whatever it looks like. I guarantee you will not be unsatisfied with that. So thank you, Amber, for being on. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Thank you.
All right.
This is a fun conversation.
It was. I mean, I feel like I was like, okay, we've gone 40 minutes now. Should we? I think we could talk all day long about
Maybe
this.
We can have a follow-up next year.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.
My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueyouteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.